Okay, hey everybody, Tekking and Barry back again. It's nice to just be back in the studio, it's been a crazy couple of days. I wanted to start this off by saying thank you to every single person that showed up and donated at my charity stream for St. Jude Children's Hospital that I did on Saturday. We raised, I just checked, it's up to $22,800. All right, and that is absurd. That is more money than I've ever raised in a single stream. The previous record was around 17, and we managed to go over, we went over 20,000 during the stream itself. I didn't think we were going to get there, but we did it. So I just wanted to take a moment at the beginning of this video to say thank you to every single person that helped that process go through and everything happened. And, we made a really decent amount of money for St. Jude. So thanks to everybody, and as always, it was just a toilet. Okay, well now, with the charity stream done, we're pretty much winding down. I mean, it's almost Christmas at this point. 2022 is almost done with. I mean, it was better than 2020. I don't know how 2023 is gonna be, but so far 2022 was like, all right, not the best, but not the worst. Actually, a lot of really cool stuff happened in 2022. Wano ended. We're now in the Egghead arc. We found out some new stuff about the story. Bleach is back, the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. I'm actually gonna go watch the new episode right after I'm done filming this. So, yeah, we had some good stuff from 2022. Let's just go with the positives for a change. How about that? Well, anyway, as with the same of every year at the end, we have Jump Festa, and Oda always issues his annual letter to the fans. This is usually the most direct way that Oda ever addresses his fan base. He's usually pretty reclusive. He doesn't do a lot of interviews. Whenever he does, we never see his face. He is doing an interview in Saudi Arabia coming up next year, I believe. I don't think that's in December. I think that's happening next year sometime, early next year. So that's interesting to see what, that interview is going to entail. But for right now, we have Oda's message. And it's, it kind of follows a very similar rhythm every single year, where part of it is a recap of everything that happened in the previous year, and then some other stuff going on in the One Piece franchise. I mean, this covers pretty much everything, not just the manga, not just the anime, but any other, product that might be being created that's related to One Piece. That's all covered in this letter. So the first part of it is pretty much just, like I said, the recap for this year. Hello everyone, this year the Wano arc came to an end. The main story started picking up. The One Piece film Red movie became a big hit. So it's been a really crazy year overall, okay? And I would say, yeah, in terms of just the core content of One Piece manga and then the anime, if you want to include the movie in that as well, because those are the things that are related to the One Piece property that definitely make the most money. I mean, well, I don't know, because there's a card game now, so we'll get to that. The card game is mentioned. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the way the manga is going. Wano was the longest arc in One Piece, period. I don't think we're ever going to get another arc in the story, like a singular inclusive arc that's as long as Wano. If you want to include everything from this moment onward as part of the same saga, like the final saga of One Piece, that's fine, and that might be longer than Wano. Wano was it was very close to 150 chapters. I think it was right around that. It was very close to that if you just want to round up, okay? So I don't think we're going to get, Egghead's not going to be 160 chapters, If they do go to Elbaf, which I'm really hoping they do, Elbaf is not going to be a 200-chapter arc. Very doubtful, okay? But the final saga itself is probably going to be longer than that, at least in my assumption there. Film Red, I made a lot of videos about that, and I'm still going to do a video based around Uta, just as her character in particular. I saw it in both the original Japanese and the English version, and they were both great, but I really did like the fact they got Amanda Lee to voice Uta, because she's done she voiced Otohime before in the anime, but she has a YouTube channel where she does a lot of music, and she's a really great voice and everything like that, and she actually has done covers of Uta's songs, and they're in the playlist. They're really good, so go check out Amelie over on YouTube, and also check out Otto, who is the singing voice for Uta as well. Really talented musical artist there. So now moving on, though, we're talking about stuff that's coming up in 2023. So first and foremost, Uta's apparently going on a TV tour. So that's interesting. She's a musical artist. She's the idol of the One Piece world. So yeah, she's going to go on tour, which I can think of a few issues with that, considering how that movie ended. But Nope, the movie ended completely happy. It's good. Uta's still around and she's going on tour, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, she's gotta rack up those tone dial sales. She's gonna be out there. You know, there might be like VR YouTubers, like the 3D YouTubers that are gonna be based off of Uta. Uta's gonna take over the world. She's gonna be appearing in something called the Red and White Song Battle. I have no idea what that is. Oda also brings up the card game here, and this I find really hilarious because I've been getting a lot of messages about the card game, like, Tekking, aren't you going to talk about the card game? Talk about the card game. So the other day I was shopping and I I remembered and I was like, oh wait, yeah, I should probably pick up the One Piece card game. No stores around where I live carry it. I don't know if they ever carried it and they sold out, or they just never even got the shipments in. But I looked at a few places and they didn't have any. So I was like, oh man, this must be either selling out like hotcakes or maybe they can't meet demand. And it's funny because Oda's staff, I guess, even brought up like, hey, we should get some cards. And there's like, oh yeah, we can't get a hold of them though. Sorry, there's just not available. So that's really hilarious that like Oda and his staff are just working and they're like, hey, we should get some of those One Piece card games. You know, we could play it a little bit. And like, okay, and then go out to grab them. It's like, we can't find them. They're not on sale anywhere. I'm like, oh, so that's ironic, I guess, that Oda can't get a hold of them. I'm sure Oda could make a single phone call and be like, hey, can I get some of the One Piece card games? Like, oh crap, we forgot to give one to Oda. Just like, here we go, have all the cards, have the extra expansion packs we haven't released yet. Here you go. Here's the Eam structure deck. You know, no, here's the buggy structure deck. So I've never actually bought the packs and like looked at them like very closely and learned how to play the game. But when I was at Anime Expo back in July, they had like a preview event for it there where they did have the card games. They weren't released yet, but you could sit down and like look through the cards and like see how they play the game and everything like that. You can learn how to play it. So me and Briggs sat down and we didn't really play a game, but we just kind of like looked through the decks and they do look pretty neat. You know, it's like the concept of the cards look pretty cool. So yeah, there's that. You know, but when I do get my hands on the One Piece card game, I will obviously talk about it. So now moving on to the juicy stuff. This is the big paragraph, all right? It's been 25 years since the serialization started. It's been such a long story. I imagine as Oda was writing that, he might have been like, it's been such a long story, guys. You know, 25 years. I mean, you really got to think about that. I was 4 years old when this started to be serialized. That's literally a quarter of a century. I mean, this One Piece really is, like, without any kind of exaggeration or hyperbole, One Piece really is going to go down in history as one of the greatest works of fiction in all of human history. Like, it kind of is, right? Like, I think it deserves a place up there, you know? It's like in 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, when people are learning about, like, the history of various, like, plays and movie scripts and short stories and novels and, you know, just book series and stuff like that. I feel like One Piece is going to be included in there just for how, like, relevant it is and how important it is to everybody now, okay? I really don't think this is going to be something that's like, oh, it was popular during this era, but then it's just going to fade into obscurity like 100 years from now. Nobody will really talk about One Piece anymore. I really don't think that's the case. I think it really has cemented its place in pop culture for years to come. Also, just the fact that Oda himself is like one of the he's the best-selling Japanese writer of all time. And I think out of every single best writer of all time, like on that list, like with William Shakespeare being #1, Agatha Christie being #2 of like all time, I think Eiichiro Oda ranks like 11th or 12th. Like best-selling author of all time. So, yeah, certainly that. He mentions that more and more young readers are picking up the work. That's also something that's like, hey, can you imagine? Because, like, if you started reading One Piece right now, where it's at, like, you're not reading it, like, in the current storyline, but, like, let's say you're, like, I don't know, 7 years old, and you pick up Volume 1 of One Piece, and you start reading it, you know, by the time you get caught up, the series might be over by that point. So it's like, you don't have to worry about, like, wow, I'm glad I get to read this whole thing in one stretch. That'll be another thing too, like when One Piece finally does end, you know, the kid that just picks it up is like, oh, One Piece is over, I'm just gonna start reading it, and you just get to read the whole thing in one stretch. I plan on doing that actually after the story ends. Maybe take a break from it for a little while, but like One Piece ends, the final chapter's over, and Oda puts down his pen, and then maybe wait a couple of months, and then I will attempt to read the entire story from chapter 1 all the way to the end and see how that actually feels, to like read one conducive story in relatively, in not like I wouldn't be able to read it all in a single day, but like, you know what I mean? Like reading it all in one go rather than waiting weeks and weeks for new, new chapters to come out. So it's pretty nuts. So this is something that he brought up that I think put a lot of people at ease. Oda mentioned that because they announced this is the final arc or the final saga of One Piece, that kind of freaked a lot of people out. Like, oh no, it's ending soon. Oda goes on to clarify and to put people at ease, to kind of say, I want people to get excited about it, I do, but I have no plans to wrap up the series anytime soon, so you can relax and read it with ease. Next year, this is going into the video game stuff, okay, we'll talk about that later, but okay, for right now, though, okay, so I think that's important because, this is a business at the end of the day. It's an industry. You got to drum up interest. You got to get people to read the magazine, okay? So I can understand why they would build it so like bombastically, like, One Piece's final arc has begun. Pick up those copies of Shonen Jump and start reading it, like I can understand from a marketing perspective, from an advertising perspective, why they would do that. But it also freaks people out because it's like, wait, whoa, hold on a second now. Final arc? How long of One Piece do we have left? Is it going to be over in a year, in 2 years? What's going on, And I'm glad that Oda, calmed everybody down a little bit here. This is what I assumed it would be also. I didn't really think that One Piece was going to end in the next year or two. I feel like when One Piece is like in the final stretch, like Oda like has a good idea of like, all right, I have this one more stretch of chapters and then we're done. We're going to find out about that first. That's going to be an announcement. That's going to be a really important announcement, I feel. Even if they try to keep it under wraps, I still feel like something that important would probably leak at some point. Like One Piece is going to be over within the next year, but that's not for a while yet, okay? Personally, I would love One Piece to end in 2027 because then that'll be a nice round 30-year, this story, 30-year epic in the making that Oda, the genius he is, created from 97 to 2027, 30 years, end it there. There'll be a lot of other properties that'll exist after. The anime will continue. There might be a prequel manga, which would lead to a prequel anime, or a sequel manga that'll lead to a sequel anime. There'll still be movies. There'll still be music. There'll still be a bunch of extra stuff. There'll be light novels. There are a bunch of things relating to this property. It's not just going to disappear. It's just the same thing that happened with Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball Toriyama, he ended his story, but it's still around to this day. In fact, it's even probably more, it's kind of like more of a resurgence of Dragon Ball, fan base rather than back during like the 2000s when I was growing up mainly. There wasn't really much of anything. So Dragon Ball is still very much around in the zeitgeist. Naruto ended, but Boruto is still going strong, you know what I mean? I guess it is. I don't know. I don't watch Boruto or read it, but I'm assuming Boruto's going strong, I guess. I don't know. Point is, it's still around, okay? It's still around. So, yeah, maybe 30 years, but who knows? I feel like whenever Oda does get to that final stretch, his Jump Festa message, maybe the Jump Festa, not next year, but maybe like in December of 2024, Oda might have something that'll say, I'm going to try to end it within the next 2 years, or something like that, and then when we really get down to the deadline of like, okay, One Piece is going to be over in 10 months, it'd be like, oh, and that 10 months is going to go by fast if it's something like that, so, just keep that in mind, but yeah, I think he's trying to also let everybody know that I'm not going to rush this, I think it would be a great disservice to Oda and the story in general if we get to the end of the story, because so many manga do that, and I think it's because certain manga get told that, like, even if the manga is doing well, they're like, okay, wrap this up within the next year or so. We got to get other stuff coming down the pipeline. And so even if the manga is doing well in Shonen Jump, like Dr. Stone, I think, was going well, but the ending of that was a tad bit rushed, and there's a lot of manga that fall into that for whatever reason. I don't know. I mean, it comes down to, I guess, the business end of things. But I feel like it would be a massive disservice to rush Oda with this. Like, hey, Oda, we know that you have the most popular manga in the world and everybody loves it and it's been going on for 25 years, but you got to wrap this up in the next year, man. Come on, we have other stories we need to come. That's not going to happen with One Piece. One Piece is like their golden child. I think Oda will be able to pace this out as much as possible. So, do you know how rare it is to have a manga that ends at a decent pace? It's rarer than you would expect. It happens, but it's rarer than you would expect. So with this situation, I'm hoping that that's the case with One Piece. So he goes on to bring up Odyssey, the game that's been in production for the last 6 years. One Piece Odyssey will be released in 2023. Interesting thing just in general about One Piece video games, some of them are better than others, but none of them I think have really ever rose to like extreme prominence. You know what I mean? Like, what's your favorite One Piece video game? I'm sure there you have a few. I've played Burning Blood. I've played Raging Battle. Wait, Raging Battle, was that a Dragon Ball Z game? I don't know. See, that's the thing though. Most of them are fighting games or games that just follow the basic plot of One Piece. You know, like you go in Orange Town and then go to the Baratier and you have a fight. Then you go to Arlong Park and you have a fight. Then you go to Whiskey Peak and have a fight. Then you go to Alabasta and you have a fight. Then you go to Enies Lobby and you have a fight. I mean, that's basically the plot of One Piece when you boil it down. But like, you understand what I mean? Like, none of the One Piece video games I personally feel have been like, oh wow, this is like one of the greatest games of all time. You know, this is a great title on the PS4 that will stay steadfast for all time. You know, I don't hear One Piece video games being discussed like that. Typically the games will come out, a lot of people will play them, they'll like them, and then after a couple of years they're just kind of be like, yeah, you know, they'll just kind of go away. You know, maybe One Piece Odyssey will be the one though. I know a lot of people were kind of critical of it with the graphics and stuff, but I think it looks interesting. I'll definitely pick it up. I'll see, you know, what the whole hullabaloo is about. I'll do some Let's Plays of it. I'm not promising I'll do the whole game or anything like that, but I'll give it a shot and we'll see what happens. The last One Piece video game was World Seeker, wasn't it? How was that? I never played it. Yeah. Anyway, so that was the big important stuff, although we have one more thing at the end here. So next up we have, he's talking about the Netflix series. Okay, so next we have different stage events and the Hollywood live action, also in production. We're currently going through the rough drafts for season 1. There's been a lot of work behind the scenes. I was the one that was the most worried during the process, but it's really great. You know, I'm excited for the One Piece live action. I really am. I just want to see what they've, what has coalesced in the past several years of production, and I think it'll be okay. I think it'll be fine. I haven't, like, we talked to Matt Owens during the Reverie a couple years back, and that was really cool, and that really kind of put a lot of people like, all right, this is like a true fan of the story that's writing the script. When we were in LA, I remember Roger was talking about it with me a little bit, live action, because he's actually like, talked to the actors and everything. And so from everything that I know from my end of things, which isn't much, I'm not like a big time Hollywood producer here or anything like that, but from what I know with my connections, massive air quotes, my connection is Barry, okay? From what I know, it's shaping up to be a pretty solid series. I don't think you should look at it in the same vein as other... I understand live action anime is hard. I get it. It's really, really hard, and there's more crappy adaptations than good adaptations, but good adaptations do happen. The Rurouni Kenshin live action was good. I liked the original Death Note live actions. The Gantz ones weren't that bad. Dragon Ball Evolution sucked. The Death Note Netflix sucked, in my opinion. What's the other one? Cowboy Bebop. We all know how that went. But hey, I think it's best to not judge these based on like other properties, because every anime is different. You can't just say because a live action adaptation of Cowboy Bebop did not work, therefore live action version of One Piece will not work. That's not fair. They're very different series, and they're being approached from different angles, different writers, different directors, all that jazz. So I'm really excited for this one. So we'll see when it gets released, but yeah. And then maybe season 2. There we go. All right. And next year in the original manga series, this is the big one, a clash between that person and that person. Oh my God. I can't believe Oda just came out and said that. I can't believe that was in a Jump Festa level message. He was just really building hype for this. Okay. So obviously that person and this person, they have been extraordinarily prominent One Piece characters for years. We're talking literally years. all right, for the fact that they're going to square up in fisticuffs in 2023 has me insanely pumped, okay? That person and that person. No, it's not even this person. It's that person and that person. Sorry, I misread. Okay, so who do you think's going to win? Oh, man, that's a hard one. That's a hard one. Well, that person has the devil fruit ability. You all know the ability. I'm not going to sit here and explain that person's devil fruit ability. But that other person, you know, he's got the hockey. You know, I'm not going to go into the hockey. We all know these characters. These are like, it's like talking about like, you know, like Goku. You don't have to sit down and explain all of Goku's abilities. We all know what Goku's abilities are. That person and that person, very, very prominent members of the One Piece cast that have been around since day one. You know, we all know about them, right? So, yeah, get ready for that, ladies and gentlemen. There's going to be a big fight. All right, there we go. Actually, it's going to be even a bigger fight because in the final little section of the letter, Oda says, "This is where the story is heading. If I had to name it in some way, it would be like the Great Battle Royale. Battle Royale. Battle Royale. Oh, of course. Sorry, I had a mind blank for a second there. Battle Royale, the hit movie from Japan from 2000. Battle Royale. Okay, in all honesty, you should go and watch Battle Royale. The funniest thing is, it's basically Hunger Games. It's essentially Hunger Games. It's a bunch of, like, school students have to fight to the death, and there's, like, this, like, supreme dictatorship, totalitarian government that's, like, it's basically Hunger Games before Hunger Games, but it's a movie. Go check it out. But no, Battle Royale, as in, like, you know, it's like a bunch of people enter, one person leaves, okay? It's a massive melee, so to speak, okay? So you just throw everybody in, and they fight to the death, and then one person emerges. You know, that's basically a Battle Royale, which I think is hinting at, like, eventually the Throne Wars that Doflamingo hinted at, he alluded to back after he was captured at Dressrosa. He talked about, like, okay, eventually somebody's going to find the One Piece, and after someone does find the One Piece, that's when this massive battle is going to take place. So I think that's really what it's going to come down to. And Oda has also been on record saying that, like, the final war of One Piece will make Marineford look like, you know, like a child's amusement park, you know, in comparison or whatever. It's like the kiddie pool compared to, like, an Olympic-sized pool, you know what I mean? Like, seriously, it's going to be crazy. And that's basically what Marineford was. Marineford was less about, like, the standard anime battle setup with, like, one person fights against this one character, and then this other person fights against this other character. It's like a series of one-on-one show-offs. There were a few of those, but mostly it was just this massive war. It was a melee. It was a battle royale kind of thing. And it's going to be the same thing probably in the final arc, except we're going to throw all the supernovas in there. We're going to throw the admirals in there. We're going to throw Blackbeard and the rest of the Yonko that are in there. You know, Luffy's going to be in there. Buggy's, of course, going to be there. Shanks is going to be there. Let's see, who else here? Who else is kind of important in the story here? Well, obviously all the Straw Hats. You know, the Straw Hats are going to stay back for this one. But yeah, I said the Supernova, so that's kind of included there. Let me think. The Grand Fleet. The Grand Fleet has to make an appearance. You know, Doflamingo might break out of prison. The Cross Guild's going to be there, so Mihawk and Crocodile are going to be there. It's just going to be insane. It's going to be this massive war. Maybe Don Krieg will make an appearance. Maybe Wang Zhi will finally try to one-up Blackbeard. Take retribution for what happened back at Full Lead. You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean. All right. So yeah, it's meant for hype. It's not meant to be like, you know, this is exactly what's going to happen. And there's been instances before where Oda has said stuff in the Jump Festa letter that didn't actually end up happening in the following year because things, you know, spaced out, scheduling and stuff. He's like, oh, I didn't get to that point, whatever. Like, I remember back in the Jump Festa letter for 2016, he was saying about 2017 that, like, Wano's gonna start, and it didn't. So that's just how it goes. Take it with a little bit of grain of salt, but overall, pretty interesting stuff there. So yeah, that was Oda's letter for this year. I think it certainly does build enough hype, but also settles some people down that were freaking out over, like, One Piece being rushed, the story just ending soon within the next year or so. I still think we got a good chunk of One Piece left. Don't worry about it. For the next 2-3 years, probably don't worry about it ending. Maybe when we hit 2025, maybe that would be, or we're getting close to 2025, maybe then we might start hearing, you know, new news about it, like, all right, we're going to be ending it in this amount of time or something like that, okay? But don't worry about it for right now. Let's just do what Oda said, and let's just enjoy his story. Let's just enjoy his magnum opus together. What do you say, Barry? Okay. Well, anyway, that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. And now we're moving on, of course, to the greatest of all animal facts, Porygon facts. Take it away. Okay, so in this installment of Porygon Facts, we're going to be talking about just how exactly one acquires a Porygon, all right? Because this was something that actually lent to Porygon becoming my favorite Pokemon, because I like the kind of things in the games that are a little bit more secretive, things that are not like, things that you don't obtain during the main quest, because everybody obtains those, you know? It's like, okay, so you're going to go down this road, and there's a giant castle, and you're going to kill the evil overlord in the castle, and then you're going to get his cool sword. Okay, and that's like part of the campaign to the storyline. So literally every single person that plays the game that gets point is going to get that sword. That sword's not special. Now, the sword that's on the other side of the planet, that's underneath a giant mountain, that you have to finish 37 side quests and level up your character to almost the highest possible degree, and then go around the planet and collect various things, and then go to that cave, and then put them in, and then you get a sword after you fight like a giant dragon boss. That is the kind of stuff I can get behind. That's why I really like Final Fantasy X, you know, with collecting the weapons and everything. You can't just collect the weapons. No, you got to collect the weapons. You got to do really annoying mini games. That's the kind of stuff. Okay, the kind of stuff that makes you sit in front of your video game console for days on end trying to collect an item just so you can get another item. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. So for that reason, Porygon is interesting in that he is the only Pokemon in all of, well, at least the first few games. I don't know if this is true with all the other ones, but at least in Gen 1, he's the only Pokemon that you cannot just obtain in the wild. You have to literally buy. Okay, well, I guess there's other Pokemon you can't obtain in the wild, but he's certainly the only Pokemon that you have to purchase, all right? And I think this was another thing that was, like, early on in the development of Pokemon. Maybe you could go to the shop and buy certain Pokemon directly from the Pokemart, but they scrapped that idea. So, in the Rocket Game Corner in Gen 1 in Celadon City, you can go and play the slots. They got rid of gambling in most of the modern Pokemon games because I think various legislative in, like, in, like, Europe and like England, it was kind of a thing where it's like you can't have slot machines in games that are targeted toward kids because that promotes gambling or whatever. I'm like, whatever, but okay, fine. Back in the day, you could gamble, all right, in the Pokemon games, and you go to the, you know, the Rocket Game Corner in Celadon, you play the slots, and if you get enough coins, you can go next door and you can buy some Pokemon. Now, I believe there was also a Dratini, and I don't think you could obtain Dratini in red and blue, but you could get it in yellow. So I'm still counting that as Gen 1. So the only Pokemon from red, blue, and yellow that you could only obtain through cash is Porygon, all right? And that stayed true, I mean, without hacking the game itself or using a Game Shark code or something, that stayed true for a while. So going into Gen 2, Gold, Silver, and Crystal, you can only obtain it from the Celadon Game Corner, or I believe you could use the Time Machine thing if you got one in Gen 1 to bring it to Gen 2, something like that. Then we get to Gen 3. It's also important to mention, once you get to Gen 3, there's kind of like a rift. So if you catch a Pokemon in Gen 1 and 2, it is possible to trade them up from Gen 2 to a Gen 3 game, but you got to do a lot of nonsense in the background. I remember Linkara did a YouTube video about that once, where he did like a whole walkthrough on how to get a Pokemon from Gen 1 through Gen 3 and beyond, eventually to the Pokemon Bank and everything like that, okay? So maybe go check that video out. But it's typically not able to do that, okay? So in Gen 3, there's no way, in Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, there's no way to get a Porygon, you know, like legally in the actual game without using some kind of Game Shark. But in Fire Red, Leaf Green, which is a remake of Gen 1, you could go to the Rocket Game Corner and buy a Porygon, same thing, and then it's the same gen, so you could trade from Leaf Green or Fire Red to Ruby and Sapphire if you wanted to. Then you get into Gen 4, and I think this is the first time you can, like, legitimately just catch a Porygon. This is the easiest way it is to get a Porygon, was not until Gen 4, and coincidentally, that was when I stopped playing Pokemon. I didn't play Gen 4 when they came out. So in Diamond and Pearl, there's a trophy garden place, and I think it's just a place you go to, and there's a dude there, and he's like, oh, random Pokemon have appeared in my garden, and it's like, it's like a random chance. I don't know, it's like a 5-10% chance every day or something. You go back to him and maybe there might be a Porygon you can catch, and that's pretty much it. In Platinum, I think it finally streamlines it where there's just a dude that gives you a Porygon in Veilstone City. So that's how you get a Porygon, I guess. And then ever since then, you know, Black and White, you have to get one in the trade or in the White Forest. X and Y is trade.
In Sun and Moon, there's a place called the Aether House, or the Ether House, I guess you can get one after you become the champion. Yeah, and it kind of becomes, it's never been a Pokemon that's been easy to get. And right here in Gen 9, Scarlet and Violet, it's unobtainable because they don't include every single Pokemon from the entire backlog in newer Pokemon games. So I don't know how many Pokemon we're up to now, like 800, 900 something. Like 900 Pokemon are not available in Scarlet and Violet just because it's too many Pokemon. There's too many Pokemon, you know? But yeah, hopefully in Gen 10. Hopefully Gen 10 will bring back Porygon. So anyway, yeah, that's how you get your hands on one. It's not super easy, so good luck to you. Anyway, I'm going to go play the slots later.